Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Emil. Hi, Brett.
Hey. Don't mind the Amazon boxes. It's almost Christmas.
Oh, you got them delivered at least.
Yeah, at least they got delivered, right?
Mhm. I'm still waiting for some presents. Yeah, let's see if they arrive.
Hey, Christian. My due diligence, I gotta go help.
Hi, everyone. I put a link to the notes on in the chat if you want to sign in or add things to the agenda, change the order. I put a bunch of things there that we might discuss, but yeah, feel free to add or change things.
The right one.
Yeah, and I guess it's 3 past, so it's probably a good time to get started. So welcome, folks, to the CDEvents working group. Today is December
Real quick.
8th. Yeah,
So,
go ahead.
Brett, I think I had the same issue as you. Like, I noticed that my HackMD wasn't updating, or I wasn't on like the same one. And I noticed the link is actually different too. So I had to click the chat. And so you might be facing the same issue there.
Yep.
The link in the invite is the old one, so yeah. It got full that meeting.
Right.
Yeah. So the meeting invite.
Thanks, Ben. I'm good now.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I forgot about that. So I had one action item actually for me to update that. And I didn't do it.
It's the last meeting this year, I guess. So it's a pity we
Yeah.
bring up the space already.
What was the reasoning for us changing the link anywho? Like what happened there?
The old one was full. 1,000
Oh, it
lines
was full.
text or something.
Got it.
Yeah. So I
Funny.
actually wanted to keep the link the same in the invite, and I wanted to archive the old ones, but I didn't do it. Sorry about that. So I will do it before the next meeting.
I guess the limit is 100,000 characters or something like that. And we apparently reached it.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I guess it's good in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, so thanks, Ben, for pointing that out. So right, so we had a few action items that I tracked from the last meetings. So Ben, you meant to prepare some demo for the maintainability topic.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have been so busy. I haven't had any chance to work on anything or anything related to CD events these last 2 weeks. Coming back from vacation, just was swamped with work. So work. So I will do that next weekend. So that's going to be the goal. I have a deadline that I need to make this week for something internal at Apple. So that's the reasoning there.
Right. Thanks for
Next
your
week,
dates.
next week is Christmas. You should be off then, but
Yeah, but I work always. So yeah.
shouldn't. Okay, yeah.
I know. Like everyone tells me that, but that is my life. I love working.
It's your life, yeah, sure.
Okay. So I guess for maybe a demo into 2024 at some point. So thanks for that. Yeah, I don't have any update from Owen about creating an issue about capitalizing URI. I still have to archive the meeting notes, which I will do once I'm back from holidays, probably. I also still have to create an issue about the conformance group. Sorry about that. I couldn't get work done on the artifact PR either, but at least I updated the SBOM PR, SBOM URI PR based on the feedback. So that was done. Right. So then in terms of maintainability of schema, I guess I'll just remove that since you mentioned already, Ben, there's no update
Yeah.
yet. And similar.
Yeah, same. Yeah, for that. And then I do have an update for the tickets. So Sean is pretty busy this month. He has something also internal. It's end of the year, so all the deadlines, right? But so after talking with him, it sounds like we're gonna get this proposal out in January, probably the first week of January, second week of January, sometime in January. There's one action item that I have left on it that I've discussed a little bit with Sean. So our plan is to actually go through some pre-existing ticket services and APIs, or at least some services that provide it, like for instance, like GitHub issues and Jira, and just make sure that the current proposal is able to satisfy most use cases that these APIs are trying to solve for and are able to be described with this new proposal. Obviously, we don't want to do everything, but we want to be sure that the ones that do matter are able to be described in an appropriate way. So that's kind of the last thing that we did. We did a little bit of this, but this is kind of like the final pass, just to make sure that we didn't miss anything, if you will.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ben.
Oh, and I also had a comment on the Java SDK as well. So internally at Apple, right, we have people that are trying to use CDEvents, and they've been wondering when the new version is coming because they said it was quite old. So do we know when? I know Jalander is probably the better person to ask here, but if anyone knows, like, when the next tagged release or the plan is.
Yeah. So we merged this, or last week, Monday. So last week we merged the PR that actually updated the SDK to the spec 030. The next thing was to add some more testing to the SDK, to do similar to what we have in the Go SDK, to have some kind of conformance testing, check that it is possible with the SDK to generate the examples we have today. So I think that's what Jalander is working on. I'm a bit hesitant and doing a release before we have some more testing in place, because it was a lot of new functionality for the generation of the code that was put in the SDK. and it was just Jalander and myself looking at that. But at least main is up to date. So if you want to start playing with that, it's not on Maven Central, but yeah, so you can pick it from the repo directly if you wanted to play with that until it's officially released, if it makes sense. I don't know if that helps at all.
It probably doesn't help due to how Apple pulls things from like basically libraries and dependencies. We would have to fork that internally and then be able to do anything with it, unfortunately. Just being, just due to like network constraints and whatnot. However, I can let them know, just say, the test, if I mention testing, they'll be like, oh, okay, they'll be like, this is important, right? But another thing too is one team, I forgot which team was it internally at Apple. I talked with him last week, but he said there was a lot of issues with the Java SDK in terms of usability. Like they couldn't even get they didn't say all of the APIs, but they said some of the APIs did not work, as in like it had marshaling and unmarshaling issues. So I'm trying to get more information, as well as what APIs those were, as well as other issues that they've run into. So expect a series of GitHub issues to the Java SDK soonish. Whenever, unfortunately, he's based out of Europe, so whenever I talk to him, it's like the next day he responds, and then it's the next day I respond. So it's a little difficult, but I try to get a list of issues that they've had experienced with using master or main in this case, and had some trouble using it, to be honest. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
But
sorry,
maybe they could talk directly to Jalander since he's in the same time zone. Then he's also in Europe. Actually, I know he's on holidays now, I believe.
Oh, is he? Oh,
already from last week, I believe. So that's maybe why he hasn't. I think he said that last time.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's also an option. Yeah. Yeah. Apple's a little
black.
Yeah. But I was just gonna say Apple's a little weird on like how people interface with like open source, Apple being Apple, right? So like usually they have to go through someone else that's considered like we have this internal concept called champion, and then they're the ones that reach out, and we're kind of that. So that's kind of why this is kind of that right now. Not to say they can't do that, but that's usually the process, the go-to process, if you will.
Yeah, understood.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to suggest the same, but yeah, obviously there is some process there to be followed. But yeah, I mean, just as a side note, I mean, Jalander is doing a great job, but he's the main person in the Java SDK, and I'm doing reviews, but I'm not like very much into Java programming, to be honest.
What would be good is if you could start tagging me in those, because that's the primary language that I currently work with. So if you could start tagging me in those particular releases or PRs, that would be very, very helpful.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, happy to do that. So thanks for that. And the other thing that I mean I could do, if it helps, I mean we could do maybe a release candidate. To put this out on mail and say, okay, well, this is a release candidate, so it's not guaranteed to work. It could be issues still to be sorted out. Yeah, that's the only, I mean, that's something, I don't know how urgent it is for your team to play with the new release, Ben. I mean, I could try and do it today, otherwise
it's not, no. It's not urgent. It's not urgent. They were just asking, especially because December, right? Like everyone's going to be on holidays anyways, but they were just wondering when the new SD or the new tag was going out. And I was just like, I have no idea. Let me ask. So yeah, here we are.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, that's another thing we could do, especially because since you're mentioning that they are experiencing issues, So what we could do a release candidate in January when I'm back. So they can pick it up from there and see if they're still experiencing issues, and also if they're, starting to file bugs, then they're relevant to the latest release, which it makes it easier to address then.
Cool.
If it makes
Awesome.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that makes perfect sense.
Okay. Cool. Sounds good. Yeah, on my side, I had this PR that I made. Just wanted, it's a small thing, but because we had some discussion about spelling, which kind of spelling do we use? Do we use British English, American English, and so forth? And I had a look, and most of the things are aligned with NUS, so it makes sense to use that as a standard for the specification documents, I think. And I added a CI job that checks spelling so that we catch new spelling mistakes. And so that looks like this is just a GitHub action. And I guess the main thing is, apart from some fixes here and there, is that the spell check requires a custom dictionary to add the words that otherwise would be considered errors, kind of the exceptions. And so this is the list that was produced today to make CI pass, which is a rather long list because we have a lot of things into the examples, which are values. Yeah.
Is there a way that we could like regex this in any way, or like some way? Because I noticed that like those base 64 values, right? Anytime we add like base 64, we're gonna have to add it here. That kind of seems like, I wonder if there's an easier way that we can maybe just use the same one, but I don't know if that's appropriate either. But yeah, maybe that's something we can think about.
Isn't there a way to exclude such strings from spell checking instead in the documents? So don't
Oh, I see what you're
spell
saying. Yeah.
something. Or
Yeah, I guess, I mean, we could exclude the examples folder. I'm not sure if I excluded it already, but we still have examples in the markdown.
Yeah, but isn't
as
it
well.
possible to have inline exemptions in the markdown files for spell checking as for any other kind of linter and stuff like that? But maybe the spell check library doesn't support them.
Yeah, I think what Emil or how I'm understanding it, make sure I just want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly, Emil. Like, so basically, if there's a misspelled, like let's say word, and if I put like an at, allow or something, basically. Yeah, got it. Cool.
Or like a code section or something that shouldn't be like I don't know, mathematical expression or something. You shouldn't have a spell check.
Yeah, I don't think this is that powerful. I mean, for specific exceptions, I don't know. I think having in the list, it's probably easier because if we have like a value, I don't know, an example SHA value that we use in all the examples, then we just put it once in the dictionary, and it's we don't have to put the annotation everywhere.
Yeah, that's fine, I think. Yeah. But there are a lot of other words in that list that are just mumbo jumbo that shouldn't really be there, I believe. Or because
okay, yeah, I mean there are this base 64.
Those.
Then these are names. I think these are fine. These, I don't know. This may be something that I missed and needs to be fixed. But yeah, so like schemas, I don't know why this seems to be valid.
Because plural is schema, right?
Sorry?
Isn't plural schema without the S? One schema, multiple schema. Or
Oh, right.
isn't that
Yeah,
how it is? Or
it could
is
be. Yeah. So
schema,
maybe this is actually, yeah.
but all those base 64 strings, are those actually, should they really be there, do you think?
There is a tag. So you can specify the tag open and close. So you can specify like code, for example, it would ignore that. So that's an array. I'm gonna share the link real quick. And it's a little bit, let me see if there's an easy that's like the first, it's like the first section anyways. It's not too big deal, but yeah, it's pretty straight. So if you go down a little bit more there, open and close. So it ignores the text between those inlines, the second one, but yeah, that one as well. So we can do something like that just with like code or something like that.
Is that in
Yeah.
Mark?
I mean, in Markdown we use, but I guess we could use like the backtick.
Yeah, it could be anything, right? So we just need to decide on something.
Ignore text between inline backticks. Oh, this is actually,
Isn't that good?
What we need. Yeah.
it's already what we need, probably.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I can test it with this. That probably would reduce already. And we can assume that everything which is in between backticks is, and there is the multi-line backtick as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, so this is code. Probably this would help already a lot. Let me check if it's not. Yeah, we don't have it here. Okay, so what I can do, I can add this to exclude all the code sections in the Markdown. I can probably exclude the examples folder as well.
We can probably keep let's first see, because I think spell checking in examples is still valuable. It's just a matter of excluding the appropriate sections, but like I said, we could see how much of it this filtering does, how well it performs.
Right. Yeah, it's just that the examples are in JSON, so the backticks wouldn't make a change there.
Right. I also think if
Right.
we would generate examples, then we wouldn't need to spell check the generated result,
Right.
just the input in that case. But that's not the case now.
Okay, but I think this already will help.
Yeah.
So I will add this to the config and update the PR and reduce the custom dictionary. So yeah, thanks for that.
Good. Thanks.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, the next thing I wanted to bring up, I updated the SBOM URI PR.
So I have the same comment as I had for another one. I think, wait, let me see. Oh, yeah. So SBOM-URI doesn't follow what we usually do camel case, right? Instead of dash.
I updated this, so it's not.
Got it.
Yeah, so the way it is
But you missed one
now,
specific place.
it's an object with SBOM and URI. so that we may add in future other things. So if you want to add a type, for instance,
Right.
or any other property to SBOM, we can do.
But the description field, right, is still SBOM-URI. Is that intentional? Like if you go up,
It's
up.
in the markdown file, but just one occasion of it is still wrong, Andrea. So the first occasion of it from just
Yeah,
UI.
here it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I missed this one. Sorry.
So the documentation is updated, but not that line.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I need to update this. Yeah, sorry. So what I did, because it's an object, so I added a new object chapter, I think, with SBOM, and so define the schema of that with URI, and then I'm saying that the SBOM field is of SBOM type with a link to this section.
Cool.
But yeah,
And
I need to, yeah.
And then real quick, did we decide on URI being Java URI as in capital U, lowercase RI, or is the standard going to be all uppercase URI? Did we ever decide on that?
My vote was
Yeah.
uppercase because I hate Java.
Okay, fair enough.
Follow the Go standard in this particular case.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat as you, but what can I, even though I work in Java today.
All right, I think everything else we had for now was like lowercase. So we only use camel case, so we put like the first letter capital if there is more than one word.
Feel like I went and looked for this because I wanted it to be the Go standard really bad, and I feel like there's already a precedence where you've used the Java camel case. So, and while I may dislike something, I'm all about consistency. So,
Yeah, and it's, to be honest, like it's, you know, some things are kind of like one way and other things are another way. So it's, you know, and I think we're still in the process of deciding what the standard is. I did see, let me see, I thought I saw something about URI. Oh yeah, right here. Owen to create an issue about capitalizing URI. That's
Exactly. So I think this will maybe be updated based on that issue that Owen will create eventually.
Yeah, makes
But
sense.
for now, I guess we should stick with the definition we have had so far with having,
Yep.
is it called dromedary case when the first letter is lowercase? Not camel case, but dromedary case, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, like that. But since now in this case URI is only one word, then the U should also be lowercase. If we keep with the current standard, but we could of course change this later on, but currently we have it.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I don't mind. It's just, I prefer less churn if possible. That's the only thing, because it's new versions. But yeah, so if there is a strong benefit in either of the conventions or the setup, we can do it and change them all at once, and maybe in a release or something.
Well, so Andrea, so I think what that means is if you care about less churn, then we need to look at what we probably follow for the most part, which I think it's the Java camel casing way. I don't know if there's a specific name for that. I think you mentioned what that was called, Emil, but yeah, so yeah, I think a little bit of investigation is needed there.
I mean, we did that in the past and we documented our decision. So, but it may be that we are, sorry, we can rediscuss it again. I didn't want to, so I think we have.
There was another example right when you were on the last page you clicked on. So it looks to me like you guys have followed the Java camel case.
I'm trying to find out where it is. I'm pretty sure we had somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think it goes into like camel case only defines like how you separate like different like verbiage and nouns, right? It doesn't really describe like what or acronyms, right? For example, like if they need to be all uppercase or whatnot. From what I know, I thought it was just yeah.
Yeah. A slower camel case. I don't know.
I thought for a second I thought Emil was messing with us, but dromedary is definitely a thing.
Yeah. But yeah. So like I said, like camel case does go over like what acronyms should look like from what I understand.
But
So
this
we might.
Wikipedia architecture actually talks about the acronyms as well.
Oh,
Though
does it?
it does further
oh.
on in this document.
Okay, let's go scroll down a little bit.
And there it seems like they actually use uppercase for all abbreviation letters.
Oh, do we?
No, in Wikipedia it seems like that's how it should
Oh,
be.
in Wikipedia.
We
Got
don't,
it.
but maybe that's how it should be done, really. Under current usage in computing. Go down a bit more, below the middle a bit. Then the next main section. There you have it. Here in that section, the fourth paragraph. Program
Yeah.
related to contain blah blah. So there you have like parse DBM XML, which is then a just capitalized abbreviation. So maybe that's the maybe that's the standard we should follow, but we haven't done so far. So I would suggest
Yeah.
we go do an overhaul of this along with the issue that Owen is supposed to write there. And either we follow this Wikipedia page or we do something else, but we should document what and why.
Yeah, and then we might want to remove, well, we can probably keep the wiki page, but we definitely need to, if we're going to link something and say we follow it, we need to follow it, right? Otherwise we need to add like caveats or whatnot saying, hey, we follow most of this but not this part of it, or just write our own section on what the standard is.
And then I guess there are some borderline words which might be acronyms but might be considered words nowadays or something like that as well. So
English is hard, man. English is hard.
no case to me.
Okay.
So Andrea, for the SBOM URI, it looked like from a technical standpoint, you had it fixed the way it needs to be. I know that Emil needed you to fix a word and put an ED on the end of it. And then there was the SBOM-URI. If you update those two things, I think that poll's ready to go in, right? Fix that, line 50, and then there was another reference right there.
Yeah.
Fix that, and then fix the line 50 on that right there. SBOM-URI becomes SBOM, right?
Yeah, I need to fix those too.
If you fix those two and I see you fix it, I'll give you a +1. And then we can get it merged.
Cool. Thanks, Brack. Anyone?
And the only reason I mentioned that is I think the acronyms and the case stuff shouldn't hold up this SBOM going in.
I agree.
Because there's precedents all over the place for the camel case, like Java style, where it's XML is capital X ML, lowercase ml. There's precedence for that all over the code base. And so I feel like that'd be a heck of a big change if we change that out. Right.
Cool. Thanks for that. So about the first part, I feel like we need to create an issue to track this work.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I have also put in here the PR about custom events. So the issue, sorry. I don't know if it's a good time to discuss it, or maybe first, Brett, is there anything you wanted to bring up about the workshop? Anything that we can do to help there?
Not yet. I mean, Emil created the repo for me. I've got it forked. I'm going to start putting together content. Lori and I talked about what she thinks we should do. And then once I get that, like I'm struggling with the slide deck right now. But hey, today's my last official day of work for this year. And then the rest of the next 2 weeks, I get to do what I want. So when I get through my honey-do list, I'm definitely going to go work on this. The storm did blow a shutter off of my house that I gotta go fix, so that's going to get in the way a little bit. You have to fix the stuff that the wife tells you to fix first, then you can go play on your computer. So yeah, that's pretty much what we are. And then Christian and I and a couple of the other team has been beaten through some ridiculous GraphQL silliness that I think we pretty much have some GraphQL stuff cleaned up, and some code cleanup. And then I think we're gonna get some more functionality going here in the next 2 weeks. I don't know, Christian can't work on it till after work, but I can work on it as soon as I get that shutter done. So there'll be more work on that. Oh, blog post, Andre, that was the other thing. So we wrote a blog post to announce the EPR and like kind of how we did it, and we want to get it to the CD Foundation, but because it mentioned SaaS in it, I had to send it through marketing and legal, and so I'm not sure when I'm going to get it back or what state it's going to be in when I get it back. But as soon as I get it back, I would definitely like to do a blog post.
So it needs internal approval.
Yeah,
on your side, right?
Yeah.
Right, for the workshop, that's at least taking some of the stuff that was already in the EPR repo and then just moving it to the CDEvents dedicated repo, right?
Yeah, and the idea is that it needs to flow better than it, like I mean, it flows fine in our repo, but it's like it gets progressively harder as it goes along. And I think we're going to shoot for like 45 minutes or an hour, and then if we're going to do that, then we want to like ramp the business up as soon as possible. So I want to go explain I want to explain EPR, explain CDEvents, and then like go ahead and get to it. One of the things I kept coming up with, and you guys can tell me how you feel about this, but posting large pieces of JSON with curl is miserable. And so I keep feeling like I need to finish the Go client before we release the workshop, because making people curl paste all these giant blobs of JSON, not going to go well, I don't think.
Yeah. So you mean like a CLI?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's a client library, but yeah, the idea would be is the very first thing it does is it gets where it can post an event, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
I'm
mean
like,
oh, sorry.
go ahead. No.
I mean the Go SDK, we have it, but you cannot use it as a CLI. It's a library, right? But you can build on that to create a CLI if you wanted to.
Yeah, that's so that what I would need to do is I need to get the CLI built, or not the CLI, but I need the Go client library for EPR, right? So that it knows how to talk to the
for EPR.
GraphQL.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it knows how to talk to the GraphQL, and then I'm going to take your Go API and then create CDEvents with that, and then use my Go API to post it. And I just don't want to go down a rabbit hole of the workshop becomes so technical that if you're not good with Go, you're in trouble. So I got to work a couple of those things out over the next 2 weeks. But I'm just gonna pick a day when, like a Tuesday, when I'm not doing anything. And
I think the Go client for that is definitely a good idea. In my own experience, following through our examples in Doc, if it's copying a curl with a JSON body, that's fine. As soon as you need to be modifying anything inside of that is where it gets not fun. So in the case of APR, if you create a event receiver and then you need to go create an event and you need to modify the ID that goes into that, like that's where things I think kind of fall off.
Yeah, I mean, you saw the how-to. It's brutal. Yeah. It echoes, and then in the middle of the echo of the base CD event, I friggin' cat the Cyclone DX S-bomb into the middle of it in the payload. I mean, that's just nasty. So, and then it got so complicated at one point, I was like, okay, we're just going to make a new JSON file and edit it and then post that JSON file. So that experience was pretty bad.
Well, to be fair, people, usually curl an SH file directly into Bash. So, and it installs, they curl a website's SH right into Bash directly. So it's not too crazy, but yeah, I definitely understand the reservations there.
So currently I have security in my title, Ben. We're not going to be curl pipe and bash shit off the internet.
Fair enough.
Until that security's out of my title, and then we can go do something silly. But yeah, no, the curl pipe bash shenanigans are it just gets unruly with the CDEvents weren't too bad. I was able to do them, and you look at the work through and copy and paste in those blocks isn't too bad. But when I got to like a Cyclone DX S-bomb, the full S-bomb, it was just brutal. So, but anyway, so we'll see. I'm not going to waste months and push this workshop way out of January just to, be able to post a Cyclone DX, which isn't what the goal of the workshop is. The goal of the workshop is to be able to use this thing to do CDEvents type stuff. So
we still need to give the workshop a run through with this audience before going more public with it, correct?
Yeah. And get on. We might even I don't know, maybe even like the first run of the workshop, we pull, this maybe a member or two of this audience in to be there, so that when we get questions about CDEvents, we don't say something stupid. Andrea's got plenty of free time. He's never doing anything. So
yeah, exactly. It'd be great to have something to do for once.
And Emil's time zones line up great, right? So it's fine.
Absolutely. I'm all yours.
Yeah. Ben, where are you? Are you California?
I'm in Austin, Texas.
Okay, so you're not too far off. You're only an hour off.
Yeah, not too bad.
So yeah, that's about all I got. I got to get approval for the blog post, and then go from there.
Cool.
Custom events. You have the PR for that. How far along is that PR?
Yeah, custom event is just an issue for now.
Yeah.
Now, and I think it's so it's. I guess the fundamental thing is that some tools that do have events today. And so if they adopt CDEvents, they might want to adopt CDEvents for some of the events, but not for all the events. At least that's the case for the Harbor registry. But still, they at least the Harbor community, they say, well, we don't want to, if a user selects CDEvents as a format for notification, we want to be able to send all the events, not just some of the events. So they want to have a consistent experience. And I guess that might be the case for other communities as well. So when we go and ask tool to adopt CDEvents, they may have some events that are not good for interoperability, but they want still to have a consistent format for all the events. And so my proposal here was to address this, that we could define like a dev CDEvent X namespace. That's just an example name. And then users, so tools that they want to use that, they can use that as long as they follow some naming convention, like using tool name dash subject name to avoid conflict as much as possible with other things. But yeah, there is of course an obvious downside of this, that as soon as tools start sending custom things, those are not interoperable anymore. But the advantage is it makes it maybe easier for a tool to adopt CDEvents, and maybe as new events are get promoted into the standard specification, they can be migrated.
It also
custom.
opens the floodgates to because generally, right, when you have an API, right, usually usually you need some sort of like token or whatnot, and usually it's only a few people that are calling these APIs. But if you just have it as an event, that means anyone can be listening to it, right? That means if any system, right? So this means that the person that's implementing it needs to make sure that one, they don't have to, but it would be in good faith that they make their stuff backwards compatible, or they follow the proper versioning schemes. Because if they just make an update, for example, and someone's using some SDK, and then they listen for this event and ends up not unmarshalling properly because the tool wasn't followed, or they didn't follow the proper versioning schemes. That's more of my concern, is how, well, I guess this is not a problem for us to solve, it's more for the companies, but it's just more of you're just kind of like opening the floodgates on who can listen to these events, right? Which is at this point, it's basically anyone that's in that system, as opposed to before, the person that can listen to the quote unquote event is the person that you're calling, right? So the blast radius there is a lot smaller. So it's something to kind of think about and might want to just call out. I'm not saying this is a problem that we have to solve, but it's definitely it definitely poses some interesting in terms of scalability with larger companies, like how they plan on wanting to deal with custom events, like how that's going to work. Because yeah, I could definitely see a lot of issues.
Former colleague once said, give someone some rope and they can make pretty knots, but they can also hang themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking from experience, I can tell you now that guardrails would have saved us a lot of pain along our event-driven journey. But guardrails also would have slowed up adoption. But it would have, like, in the long run, going back and trying to make things conform I swear, is harder than doing it right the first time.
Yes, it is so tough.
Yeah. And so once basically the we're going with cool sayings that we hear other people say is once the horses are out of the barn, you ain't getting them back in. Yeah, if we do allow custom events, we just need a good set of rules around them and definitely namespace them out of CDEvents. You know, I mean, I immediately ran into needing a type when I started working on some documentation, because we have all this security stuff we do with CD and with our event driven system. And so I've got all these different security events and didn't really have them in the CDEvents yet. We talked about that, you know, where the image, I want the image to say, I want to be able to say that this package has been scanned by SCA or SAST, you know, those type of things. We talked about that at nauseum in one of the other meetings, so I'm not going to rehash it all. But yeah, I would rather not use custom events for day-to-day things that we need real events for. Like custom events should be you've got some tomfoolery going on in your company that you can't get out of your automation, right? And we're not going to represent it because no one else in the world does it that way. But everybody else does SCA scans, so we should represent that.
Yeah, I think the goal is a little bit different though, right? Like as I understood it from Andrea, like, you know, the people that are wanting custom events, like they don't want two different ways of doing something. They want just to use the event bus. That's what it sounded like. Is that correct, Andrea?
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking the use case is. And then there's a couple of, I think it's outside of the custom events issue, but we should talk about access to events and
Yep.
who's
I'm just
allowed to
gonna
talk
bring
with
that
them.
up.
Yeah, because but I think that's a different issue from this one.
Yeah, definitely.
As far as I'm concerned, the only thing here with the custom events, the way I read it is that we've got this well-formed set of events, and your shit falls outside of that well-formed set of events. So you can still use the system, but don't bring that back to us and ask us to fix it, right? You get to keep all the pieces. But the access stuff, we've already got this problem. And so we should, in the scope of EPR, we're trying to figure out how to tackle it, because EPR is the enabler there, right? Where it puts everything on the same bus. And then you've got all these events that are like safe, right? The data classification on them is safe. Everybody in the company can see them. It's fine. And then you've got these events where you're like, oh, these are security events. Data classification says only the smaller group of people can see it. Should I put it on a separate bus, right? And then have a different authentication method? It gets really complicated.
Yeah,
so I think those are two different events. I mean, two different issues.
Problems. Yeah. I definitely agree. So with that said, Andrea, I think we need to, you know, while the issue makes sense, I think we need to kind of outline like at least some good candidate for rules that make sense on protecting the producer, because it's actually both protecting the consumer and the producer, because both could be bit really hard by this if one decides to deviate, for example.
Right. It goes back to things I've said in the past. If you have JSON, you need schema. You know, you've got to protect yourself from rampant, crazy JSON. So a schema would protect the producer and the consumer, right? If it doesn't match the schema, then you wouldn't allow it to go through. But those are things we need to like document out, right?
And flush out. Yeah. Or some idea of that at least.
So
Yeah, so
Andrea, do you think that the hardware, for example, would be fine if we define the outer borders of the event, of a custom event, and then they can define the payload of it for their needs? Is that fine with them then, or?
I think so. But I'm not sure we would want to define the event types. Because then we go into the business of versioning events type for them. I mean but yeah, so they definitely mentioned they would like to have a schema for their events. So I think what we could propose was that we allowed for custom event, the schema lives on harbor side, but it is defined. And so from CDEvents, what it would mean is that we define a format for the event type that they must follow in terms of how it is structured, how the versioning works for that, and that we already had a proposal, I think, from you, Emil, to allow for including custom schema definition. And so custom events would need to have a custom, we would need to have the custom schema defined, pointing to schema hosted on the specific place where it is. And then, yeah, I think. Oh, and then the other thing is that from the SDK point of view, I think the only thing that we should be able to do is to validate that the event type follows the rule that we set. So if there is an event type that we, as in the CDEvents dev.cdeventx area, we validate the format. And if the format is fine, we can return like a raw JSON blob for the payload.
We could probably use a hook, right? Like in the SDKs, we can have unmarshalling hooks and serialization hooks where they don't need the raw JSON payload or do anything. They just apply the hook and then it would know how to unmarshal that. It's probably a good way to handle that.
Yeah, that's even better. Yeah. But that, so that part of the code, the code that actually does the unmarshalling would be hosted again in some library maintained by the specific tool, right?
But I didn't get it now. Should we or should we not have a generic schema for these custom events then?
So I was of the mindset we had a generic schema for the CDEvents, and I'll explain why. Is because like we value, like in our event system, there's certain fields that have to follow rules, right? And one of them is our we call it actions, but it's your types, right? And they have to follow a certain convention, or else you're not allowed to have that. So there's like simple stuff like don't have any characters other than the only character allowed in a type would be a period, a non-ASCII characters, non-ASCII, anything that's not, AB or a 0 or a 9, you can only have dots. And then we also said they have to all be lowercase, right? So that's the type of stuff we could define in a generic schema.
Yeah, and you also wrote there, Andre, in the description of the issue there that the overall structure must be compatible with the context definition we have in our schema, right? So
yeah,
that means that the context part of the event should still conform to all other CDEvents, but then the event type obviously shouldn't be hard-coded in the schema there. So the event type could be, as long as the event type it starts with some dev.cdevents.x or something like that. Maybe that's fine.
That goes back to what you were saying, Emil, is that the format should all be the same except for the type should be free form, and the free form but meet a convention, and then the payload is we have to figure out what we are going to do with the payload.
Yeah, and then we have the possibility to provide a custom schema URI for the payload as well if they want to have it for as part of the context, which is another issue referenced here from somewhere. It's in the #91 issue 91.
Out of curiosity, Andrea, when do you think that this is going to be? I know it's still early, but when do you think you're going to actually start working on a proposal on this? Because I think seeing something a little bit more concrete will at least give me at least some ability to kind of reason about all the things we talked about and see what could potentially work and not work and how the SDKs would function as well. So what do you have a timeline at all, or? or it'll be ready when it's ready. That's also completely fine too.
No, I mean, this issue was meant as an initial proposal, but needs to be refined. So based on the discussion today, I think I've got quite a few good ideas and things that we need to add. So maybe I can keep working on the issue, or if you prefer, I can make an HackMD document if that helps.
Yeah, that'd be actually really helpful for me, because I need something a little bit more concrete. Because, you know, like I said, like, you know, we've talked a lot about it, a lot of things, but like without seeing like how you envision this working, like as a whole, it's really hard to know, yeah, just to know, like, you know, what the direction is going to be.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, so this is my last working day this year as well, and I will be away, so I won't be working for my holidays. But yeah, once I'm back, I'll pick this up and put together a proposal. I don't have hard dates, Ben, but yeah,
Okay.
I'll try.
No
I
worries.
want to keep the momentum going with the harbor community as well. So I'll try to follow up as soon as possible.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
Right. Oh, yeah, we are over time actually. Happy holidays from Brett. Yeah, happy holidays, everyone, and have a great time.
Yep, you as well.
Now
Happy
it's 2 weeks
holidays.
without any meetings, right? In this group.
Yeah.
No meeting in
Yeah,
2
that's
weeks.
what we said last week, I believe.
Yeah, it's good.
Cool.
See you
All right.
holiday.
All right.
Yep.
Bye,
Happy
everyone.
holidays. Bye,
Have a
everyone.
good one.
Holidays.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.